The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy notes that Disaster Area, a plutonium rock band from Gagrakakaka mine zones, are generally held to be not only the loudest rock band in the galaxy, but in fact the loudest noise of any kind at all. Regular concert goers judge that the best sound balance is usually to be heard from within large concrete bunkers some 37 miles from the stage, whilst the musicians themselves play their instruments by remote control from within a heavily insulated spaceship which stays in orbit around the planet, or more frequently around a completely different planet. Their songs are on the whole very simple and mostly follow the familiar theme of boy being meets girl being beneath a silvery moon, which then explodes for no adequately explored reason. Many worlds have now banned their act altogether, sometimes for artistic reasons, but most commonly because the band's public address system contravenes local strategic arms limitations treaties. This has not, however, stopped their earnings from pushing back the boundaries of pure hypermathematics, and their chief research accountant has recently been appointed Professor of Neo-Mathematics at the University of Maxi-Megalon, in recognition of both his general and his special theories of disaster area tax returns, in which he proves that the whole fabric of the space-time continuum is not merely curved, it is in fact totally bent. Ford staggered back to the table where Zaphod, Arthur and Trillian were sitting waiting for the fun to begin. "Gotta have some food," said Ford. "Hi, Ford," said Zaphod. "You speaking to the big noise boy?" Ford waggled his head non-committedly. "Hot Black? I sort of spoke to him, yeah." "What'd he say?" "Well, not a lot really. He's, yeah? He's spending a year dead for tax reasons. I've got to sit down." He sat down. The waiter approached. "Would you like to see the menu?" he said. "Or would you like to meet the dish of the day?" "Huh?" said Ford. "Huh?" said Arthur. "Huh?" said Trillian. "That's cool," said Zaphod. "We'll meet the meat." In a small room in one of the arms of the restaurant complex, a tall, thin, gangling figure pulled aside a curtain, and oblivion looked him in the face. It was not a pretty face, perhaps because oblivion had looked at him in it so many times. It was too long for a start, the eyes too shrunken and too hooded, the cheeks too hollow. His lips were too thin and too long, and when they parted his teeth looked too much like a recently polished bay window. The hands that held the curtain were too long and thin too. They were also cold. They lay lightly along the folds of the curtain and gave the impression that if he didn't watch them like a hawk, they would crawl away of their own accord and do something unspeakable in a corner. He let the curtain drop, and the terrible light that had played on his features went off to play somewhere more healthy. He prowled around the small chamber like a mantis contemplating an evening's praying, finally settling on a rickety chair by a trestle table where he leafed through a few sheets of jokes. A bell rang. He pushed the thin sheaf of papers aside and stood up. His hands brushed limply over some of the 1,000,000 rainbow-coloured sequins with which his jacket was festooned, and he was gone through the door. In the restaurant, the lights dimmed. The band quickened its pace. A single spotlight stabbed down into the darkness of the stairway that led up to the centre of the stage. Up the stairs bounded a tall, brilliantly coloured figure. He burst onto the stage, tripped lightly up to the microphone, removed it from its stand with one swoop of his long thin hand, and stood for a moment bowing left and right to the audience, acknowledging their applause and displaying to them his bay window. He waved to his particular friends in the audience, even though there weren't any there, and waited for the applause to die down. He held up his hand and smiled a smile that stretched not merely from ear to ear, but seemed to extend some way beyond the mere confines of his face. "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen," he cried. "Thank you very much. Thank you so much." He eyed them with a twinkling eye. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "the universe as we know it has now been in existence for over 170,000 million billion years and will be ending in a little over half an hour. So, welcome one and all to Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe." With a gesture, he deftly conjured another round of spontaneous applause. "I'm your host for tonight," he said. "My name is Max Quadlepline." Everybody knew this, as his act was famous throughout the known galaxy, but he said it for the fresh applause it generated, which he acknowledged with a disclaiming smile and wave. And I've just come straight from the very, very other end of time, where I've been hosting a show at the Big Bang Burger Bar, where I can tell you we had a very exciting evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I will be with you right through this historic occasion to the end of history itself. Another burst of applause died away quickly as the lights dimmed down further. On every table, candles ignited themselves spontaneously, eliciting a deep gasp from all the diners and wreathing them in 1,000 tiny flickering lights and million intimate shadows. A tremor of excitement thrilled through the darkened restaurant as the vast golden dome above them began very, very slowly to dim, to darken, to fade. Max's voice was hushed as he continued. "So, ladies and gentlemen," he breathed, "the candles are lit, the band plays softly, and as the force shield dome above us fades into transparency, revealing a dark and sullen sky hung heavy with the ancient light of livid, swollen stars, I can see we're all in for a fabulous evening's apocalypse." Even the soft tootling of the band faded away as stunned shock descended on all those who had not seen this sight before. A monstrous, grisly light poured in on them, a hideous light, a boiling, pestilential light, a light that would have disfigured hell. The universe was coming to an end. For a few interminable seconds, the restaurant spanned silently through the racing void. Then Max spoke again. "For those of you who ever hoped to see the light at the end of the tunnel," he said, "this is it." The band struck up again. "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen," cried Max. "I'll be back with you again in just a moment, and meanwhile I leave you in the very capable hands of Mr. Reg Nullify and his cataclysmic combo. Big hand, please, ladies and gentlemen, for Reg and the boys." The baleful turmoil of the skies continued. Hesitantly, the audience began to clap, and after a moment or so, normal conversation resumed. Max began his round of the tables, swapping jokes, shouting with laughter, earning his living. A large dairy animal approached Zaphod Beeblebrox's table, a large, fat, meaty quadruped of a bovine type, with large, watery eyes, small horns, and what might almost have been an ingratiating smile on his lips. "Good evening," it lowed, and sat back heavily on its haunches. "I am the main dish of the day. May I interest you in parts of my body?" It harumphed and gurgled a bit, wriggled its hindquarters into a more comfortable position, and gazed peacefully at them. Its gaze was merely met by looks of startled bewilderment from Arthur and Trillian, a resigned shrug from Ford Prefect, and naked hunger from Zaphod Beeblebrox. "Something off the shoulder, perhaps," suggested the animal. "Braised in a hot white wine sauce?" Your shoulder?" said Arthur in a horrified whisper. "But naturally my shoulder, sir," mooed the animal contentedly. "Nobody else is mine to offer." Zaphod leapt to his feet and started prodding and feeling the animal's shoulder appreciatively. "Oh, the rump is very good," murmured the animal. "I've been exercising it and eating plenty of grains, so there is a lot of good meat there." It gave a mellow grunt and gurgled again and started to chew the cud. It swallowed the cud again. "Or casserole, perhaps, of meat," it added. "You mean this animal actually wants us to eat it?" whispered Trillian to Ford. "Me," said Ford, with a glazed look in his eyes. "I don't mean anything." "That's absolutely horrible," exclaimed Arthur. "The most revolting thing I've ever heard." "What's the problem, Earthman?" said Zaphod, now transferring his attention to the animal's enormous rump. "I just don't want to eat an animal that's standing there inviting me to," said Arthur. "It's heartless." "Better than eating an animal that doesn't want to be eaten," said Zaphod. "That's not the point," Arthur protested. Then he thought about it for a moment. "All right," he said, "maybe it is the point. I don't care. I'm not going to think about it now. I'll just, The universe raged about him in its death throes. "I think I'll just have a green salad," he muttered. "May I urge you to consider my liver?" asked the animal. "It must be very rich and tender by now. I've been force-feeding myself for months now." "A green salad," said Arthur emphatically. "A green salad," said the animal, rolling his eyes disapprovingly at Arthur. "Are you going to tell me," said Arthur, "that I shouldn't have a green salad?" "Well," said the animal, "I know many vegetables that are very clear on this point, which is why it was eventually decided to cut through the whole tangle problem and breed an animal that actually wanted to be eaten and was capable of clearly saying and distinctly, and here I am." It managed a very slight bow. "Good glass of water, please," said Arthur. "Look," said Zaphod, "we want to eat. We don't want to make a meal of the issues. 4 rare steaks, please, and hurry. We haven't eaten in 576,000 million years." The animal staggered to its feet. It gave a mellow gurgle. "A very wise choice, sir, if I may say so. Very good," it said. "I'll just nip off and shoot myself." He turned and gave a friendly wink to Arthur. "Don't worry, sir," he said. "I'll be very humane." It waddled unhurriedly off to the kitchen. A matter of minutes later, the waiter arrived with 4 huge steaming steaks. Zaphod and Ford wolfed straight into them without a second's hesitation. Trillian paused, then shrugged and started into hers. Arthur stared at his, feeling slightly ill. "Hey, Earthman," said Zaphod with a malicious grin on his face that wasn't stuffing itself. "What's eating you?" And the band played on.
I hope you'll join us at the restaurant at the end of the universe when the next chapter drops very soon.